Morning, everyone. I'm going to do a talk today called the Nature of Love. So there never was a time when love was more needed in the world than it is today at this very time now. When religious intolerance, violence, and the exploitation of materialism and selfishness are at their peak. On the one hand, there are those who misunderstand the true nature of love and confuse it with lust. And then there are those spiritually inclined who are apt to say that love is just another concept that needs to be transcended. Well, maybe in the final analysis, that last statement is true. But love still has a task to do in the world before she disappears from mortal sight. In the Theosophical Glossary, under the entry Karma Deva, H.P. Blavatsky explains that although the word in popular parlance refers to the god of love, esoterically, it has a completely different meaning. And she says karma, K-A-M-A, not K-A-R-M-A, which we pronounce kurma. Karma, K-A-M-A, is the first conscious, all-embracing desire for universal good, love, and for all that lives and feels, needs help and kindness. The first feeling of infinite, tender compassion and mercy that arose in the consciousness of the creative one force as soon as it came into life and being as a ray from the Absolute. Says the Rig Veda, desire first arose in it, which was the primal germ of mind, and which sages, searching with their intellect, have discovered in their heart to be the bond which connects entity with non-entity, or manas, the mind, with pure Atma Buddhi, which is the intellect illumined by the spirit, Atma. There is no idea of sexual love in the conception. Karma is preeminently the divine desire of creating happiness and love. And it is only ages later, as mankind began to materialize by anthropomorphization, its grandest ideals into cut and dried dogmas, that karma became the power that gratifies desire on the animal plane. End of quote. In the very depths of our being, we have this harmony that is a reflection of that first feeling of infinite, tender compassion. It is the seed of bodhisattvaship and bodhisattvahood that many on this earth try to nurture. They attempt to burn away all obstructions so that all that is left is the flame of love in their hearts, a steady, cool flame that has rendered all else void. This is the kind of life aspired to by the Mahayana Buddhists, Sufis, and Bhakti yogis in India. And this kind of love is sadly missing from modern society. Materialistic science has given us very little respect for human life. No matter how much science tries to defend itself, a tree is definitely known by its fruits. And one of the saddest fruits of this society is the way in which life is regarded so cheaply. Almost every day we read of individuals being injured or murdered for the sake of a trifling amount of money, or just for phones or jewellery or cars. Another worrying trend is that certain young people are now saying that they will attack someone just for fun, just for kicks. They will even record it on their phones and relay it to their friends. And this is far from Pythagoras' statement in his golden verses that we should take heart, for the race of man is divine. Take heart, for the race of man is divine, something I've mentioned many, many times, of course. This happens because we are far too shallow in our regard for each other. If we only realised that the same light is shining in the hearts of all beings, we would understand that any illusions of separateness are just surface manifestations Separateness is indeed this great heresy that it's mentioned in the Voice of the Silence, and I mentioned so many times. It is the cause of so much of the evil and of all of the selfishness in this world. If oneness is the dream of all mystics, separateness is their nightmare. If the golden age is always within us, then the dark age is always around us, created by the misunderstanding of who or what we really are and our relationship with our fellow human beings. Society has developed based very much upon the idea of coercion instead of love. Leo Tolstoy emphasized this point towards the end of his life on the true teachings of Jesus. And if we'd had these true teachings of Jesus, we would not have had need of police forces, armies, courts of law, etc. Jesus taught us to love our enemies and to bless those that curse us. But how many in so-called Christian countries would even think of doing just that? Islamic and Christian fundamentalists seem to have forgotten the meaning of love and traded it to become children of this aggressive age, promoting the law of violence and separateness and using coercion to get their message across, which never works, of course. Anyone will agree with them if they've been tortured or coerced, but they don't really in their hearts believe. Which of these two religions will be the first to follow the law of love that their founders inculcated, and therefore be an example before the world of true religious feeling? As it is now, they both follow a path that is diametrically opposed to what their teachers wanted. And this is not to say that there are many Christians and Muslims who are like this. Many are trying to follow the fine example of their teachers. It is unfortunate that the minority, the fanatics, who completely misunderstand the subtleties of their scriptures, are the most vocal and somehow believe that the murder of innocents is just. I'm sure that karma will redress the balance in the course of time. It is perhaps the perpetrators that should be pitied as much, if not more, than the victims, as they will very soon discover that their expectation of eternal reward in heaven for acts of cruelty and murder will never actually come to fruition. It is time that love entered the arena. It is the only thing that can make our hearts tender and bring us closer together as human beings. One can learn philosophies and spiritual teachings and not be one iota more compassionate and caring. The time has passed when we had the luxury of learning spiritual or esoteric teachings merely to further our own understanding. The world is in a crisis, and only love can save us from the abyss that we individually and collectively face. A world without love cannot stand, no matter how advanced technological achievements or how impressive the religious ceremonies. Nor can it survive on merely intellectual comprehension of spiritual teachings. Without love in its truest sense, we are lost in the fog of selfishness and ignorance. What is love then? In its highest sense, it is our relationship with the highest. It is the reflection in us of all the harmony that lies at the heart of all things. It is the universal desire for good, for all that is beneficial, to manifest in humanity. It is our link with the divine and with our fellow creatures. It is the supreme attraction. We all know that love comes to us in many ways. We have the love of parents for children. We have children for parents, love of friends, the love of a man for a woman, or vice versa, and even sensual love. All of these at the highest level can be ennobling and beautiful, but of course they are also limiting, because a mother would see countless people die if it meant her child would live, and lovers would kill for the beloved's sake, and this happens quite a lot, of course. Yet there's a positive side, as in the case of a couple who are truly in love, in the truest sense of love. Their affection can reach out and touch others, and so benefit humanity, and add to the storehouse of pure love that needs to be drawn on by the benefactors of the planet. There are those in the world who would warn us against analysing love too much. It is something to be experienced and not scrutinised. This is true to a certain extent. Then there are those deep thinkers who find it impossible to accept something without first understanding it to the best of their ability. Once they have discovered the scientific nature of love, as expressed in the quotation at the beginning of this paper, they will be able to relate it to the laws of nature by applying the maxim, as above, so below, and therefore clearly see that love at any level is a vision of this eternal harmony in varying degrees, and any lack of love is due to a clouding of vision. Love indeed is present throughout the manifested universe. That is the only thing that can save us in the end. The further we drift from love, the crueler society becomes, and the more we are plunged into the countless horrors that haunt us all nowadays. It is all to do with a lack of love, and not particularly a lack of spirituality. We can have spiritual people who love only themselves. This is not necessarily lack of spirituality that makes the world so dark, but this lack of love. To love one another is the highest we can achieve on this planet. When H.P. Blavatsky was asked in The Key to Theosophy whether equal justice to all and love for all creatures is the highest standard of theosophy, she replied, there is a far higher one, which is the giving to others more than to oneself, self-sacrifice. But of course, self-sacrifice will be impossible without love. If the giving was devoid of love, it would just become an empty act performed mindlessly because it was written in some book or some authority recommended it, or we think it's just right to do that. It is only the deepest love that inspires someone to self-sacrifice. Nothing else will awaken compassion in the heart. So although self-sacrifice may be the next step up from love, it is only through love's gateway that it can be reached. There is no other way if it is to be meaningful and transformative on an individual and global level. Love is the bright light that needs to be lit in our hearts so that the world's suffering can be lessened and the bitter ocean of life's experiences sweetened just a little. It is something that all those who wish to ease the pain of humanity should cultivate in their hearts perpetually. It is not something that needs to be learned or needs to be added. We just need to remove the obstacles in its manifestation in us, all those man-made emotions and feelings born of the illusion of separateness, and these create a barrier that prevents love from shining out from us and illuminating the lives of others. Therefore, lust, anger, greed, and jealousy must be eliminated by soaking ourselves thoroughly in the teachings of meditation on love, and also introducing it into our lives by our acts in a practical sense. The Buddha tells us that anger is never overcome by anger. Only love ever overcomes anger. The escalation of acts of violence throughout the world because of the totally mistaken and disastrous view that retaliation against violence will somehow end it is the main cause at the moment of much of the misery in this world of ours. As Jesus tells us, we must learn to love our enemies and bless those that curse us if we are to get anywhere near to peace on earth. Someone needs to break the cycles of violence, and it needs to start with each one of us. If we think that our contribution is too small, then we are giving into another dire heresy, pessimism. Peace has to start somewhere, so let it begin with us, and it will grow. Once the seeds are planted, they will sprout. The process has to begin somewhere. Political legislation has proved futile because it cannot affect a reform in human nature. So let love have its say, because love truly can transform us all for the better. Once we realise the nature of love and the nature of true love, extracted from its associations with sensuality and emotionalism, we will have a power that cannot be defeated by any force in heaven or on this earth. Then we can surely lay the foundations for the return of a golden age that is so sorely needed and will only re-emerge when we really want it to. And Krishnamurti says, we can only know what intelligence is when we know what love and compassion is. Because we do not know what love and compassion is, we have to resort to cunning. Love and compassion is the same thing. Thank you very much for listening. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Peace on earth and goodwill to all beings.